Hey everyone, I'm Tassenix and welcome back to another mod guide. This time we're getting into General Grievous. One of my very first mod guide videos was covering Snap, and we've covered a lot of ground since then. Ton of factions, ton of characters, but you guys requested that I go back and cover this, and so we'll get into the rest of the General Grievous Dark Side droid team now. Let's go ahead and cover the TLDR real quick. So here's the TLDR on General Grievous. Set types. 3 health sets. Straight up. You don't need to worry about anything else, really. This is the best way to maximize him. Arrow, you get speed or health. Speed if you need it to hit the minimum threshold related to how you clock his speed for B1, relative to B1. And we'll talk about that in further detail in the video, but you use speed if you have to. Health primary if you can. That would be better. Circle should be health for sure. Triangle should ideally be crit damage to have, the most kapow. Even better if you have a strong secondary of percent health, maybe some flat health to boot. Otherwise, there's an intelligent argument to be made to go with the health primary there, but I think crit damage is going to give you the most bang for your buck if you can. Cross should be potency or health. I prefer potency because I have one with a really strong health secondary on it, and having a high base potency means that you're able to land your initial debuffs more reliably and therefore more reliably, more quickly establish your turn meter train and get running around the enemy team. However, if you had some really banging potency secondaries and you were satisfied that you had a high enough level of potency without it, a health primary on the cross would be the next best thing. Turn order, he should be third. Your staff is going to end up always going first. If you have the Omicron, he just gets a bonus turn. Then I'd have B1 modded to be, the next in the turn order, and then General Grievous has third. Yeah. Stat priority should be speed up until that threshold I mentioned to make sure that you're in the right proportion to B1 so that you're able to close that loop and have a tight turn meter train. So speed up until that point, and then you don't need to worry about it. Then health, and then potency. And I do have this note here that potency is really only necessary up to 80%. And you'll see why in just a moment. But really, any more than 80%, I would say, is a waste as far as a starting number. Okay? So, there's your TLDR. Let's go ahead and get into his leadership. Daunting presence. All enemies have minus 40% critical avoidance and minus 50% defense. Whenever a dark side droid ally is resisted, that droid gains 10% potency, stacking for the rest of the encounter. Target locked enemies can't counterattack. So, huge deal here, right? We lower the critical strike chance burden on all of our characters because we're inflicting this crit avoidance, this negative crit avoidance on the enemy, minus 50% defense. And then whenever any of our dark side droid allies are getting resisted, we get 10% potency stacking. So this is kind of like your fail-safe in that if you didn't have enough potency to have everything land on your characters off rip, that is much less likely on their next turn and the next turn and the next turn. And then this target locked enemies can't counterattack is a huge feature that's just wonderful to abuse. Next part here is when a target locked enemy is damaged, each droid and each separatist ally gain 2% turn meter, doubled for Grievous. So if you're a separatist droid, you're gaining 2% separately from each clause, right? So, or each part of that. So that's 4% turn meter each time a target locked enemy is damaged, and then it's actually 8% turn meter for Grievous in particular. So if you're hitting 5 target locked enemies, you're having 40% turn meter fed to Grievous and 20% for everybody else. That's pretty nice. When damaged by an attack, dark side enemies lose 5% turn meter and light side enemies lose 2% potency, stacking. So in particular against dark side teams, Grievous is great because he's able to accelerate turn meter into his own team and strip it out of dark side enemies. Very powerful stuff. Okay, his unique Metalloid Monstrosity. At the start of Grievous's turn, all other droid allies take damage equal to 8% of Grievous's max health, doubled for light side droids, and he gains 5% max health and potency for each other droid ally for the rest of the encounter. This damage cannot defeat characters. So yeah, So he's going to do 8% of his own max health damage to all allies at the start of every turn, and that's 16% if it's a light side droid. If you're using like BB-8 in here, or T3M4, something like that, maybe even R2, I don't know. Not that you usually would these days, but you could. Regardless of how much damage he's doing to allies, he's gaining 5% max health per each, ally, not himself, other ally, right? And 5% potency. So that's 20% max health and potency at the start of every turn in which he has 4 droid allies. This is ticking off at the start of every turn, including when he should be getting bonus turns, and we'll cover that right next. But this is why I say mod him for no more than 80% potency, because at the start of his very first turn, he will, in 5 versus 5, he'll have 100% potency. And then from his leadership, he'll only ramp from there if he gets resisted. And then when he gets his next turn, he's gaining more potency and more health anyway. So no more than 80%, and that's why I say it. All right, at the start of every character's turn, if Grievous is below 100% health, he dispels all debuffs on himself and inflicts marked on the other healthiest droid ally until the end of the turn. So that's whether it's ally or enemy, okay? He's going to be doing this check every turn. So if you try to focus down Grievous early, he punishes you by forcing you to hit one of his allies. And why is it a punish? Because whenever a droid or separatist ally is defeated, Grievous dispels all debuffs on himself, resets all ability cooldowns, and gains 1 bonus turn. That's going to be nasty, because that's going to trigger this first clause. He's going to be gaining max health, and he's going to be hitting you really hard. Let's explain why. All right. His basic, Furious Assault. Deal physical damage to target enemy and inflict healing immunity for 2 turns. This attack can't be evaded or countered. If the target was already debuffed, deal 30% more damage. Grievous's attacks deal damage based on his max health instead of his physical damage. So that's why. He is probably one of the only attackers in the game like this where he has no benefit from offense in particular. You'll see all of his damaging abilities have the dependency that it's doing it based on his max health, not offense. So that's why we talk about starting him off in health sets, and then he's going to be stacking max health from his unique, from stacking it onto him, and then we'll see he has another way here in just a moment. All right. His first special, Grievous Wounds. Love the pun there. And one of my favorite abilities to use in the game, the name is Grievous Wounds, but I always call it because that is the sound of it popping off. But deal physical damage to all enemies based on Grievous's max health, inflict target lock for 2 turns, and remove 30% turn meter from them. This attack can't be evaded. So for both the target lock and the turn meter removal, we do want these debuffs. We do want to have a sufficient amount of potency so that we can actually land all this stuff, right? That's why it matters to some degree to have a decent amount up front. Okay, his second special, Skittering Horror. Gain health steal up for 2 turns, then deal physical damage based on Grievous's max health to target enemy and stun them for 1 turn. If the target was already debuffed, they lose 10% of their max health. This excludes raid bosses and galactic legends, and this can't be resisted. A Grievous gains 10% max health for the rest of the encounter. This attack can't be evaded. So this is a third source of max health stacking for Grievous. Nasty. And of course, we would want this stun to land. Again, a good reason for potency. Okay, let's go ahead and dig into team comps and turn order. So, for 5 versus 5, again, everything you see here is listed in terms of the desired turn order, not who's the leader. Obviously, it's General Grievous. But yeah, first up is always going to be Stap if you have the Omicron, all right? He's going to kick off the fight with his bonus turn. But, actually modded in terms of his speed order, I still actually have him ahead of B1. Now, I have him at 385 in a health set. You do not need to have him in a health set. And you probably don't even need to be that fast, even if you were, but it's nice. It's nice. I do actually recommend offensive modding for Stap, whether that's in a crit damage set or in an offense set. And if you're trying to be decently fast in that, you might be somewhere in the 330 to 350 range. So even in the lower case of 330, that's still faster than my B1, who right now is at 326 speed. All right, General Grievous is going to be third. Then Magna. I would say Magna has slightly more use for speed than B2. And B2 really needs no speed at all, because as long as he's not, shocked or dazed or stunned, I guess, so that's why tenacity matters a lot on him, he's just going to be taking so many bonus turns. Anytime any one of his allies gets hit, he has a chance to get reset and have his AoE available, and he'll just be spamming that, feeding turn meter to the rest of the team, so he really doesn't need a lot of speed. All right, and then for 3 versus 3 comps, you have a few options, but I think the best one by far is General Grievous, Stap, and B1. You really do want to get Stap out of the way early in the fight when you're fighting this, and B1 punishes you for focusing on Stap. He's going to heal him up. Even more so if you hit those stretch goals with the stat modding and you have like a health primary on the cross, maybe with some great percent offense, because that extra bulk helps him stick around and he's stacking max health on himself. Yeah, it can be oppressive to try and go after this team, so usually you end up finding that you need to go after B1, which means that Stap and General Grievous have some time to run roughshod on you. So I really like this composition, but say you wanted to have your B1 available for use with Newt and Django or something like that in 3 versus 3, like to take on a Qui-Gon team. Okay, fine. You can go with GG, Stap, and B2, and it's a similar threat where you really do want to be getting Stap out of the way, but B2 punishes you for going after his allies. So what are you going to do about that? And then third, and I think the least of these, is going to be with General Grievous, Stap, and Magna Guard. My main issue with this is Magna Guard kind of sits there like a lump. Yes, your other allies start under stealth, but Stap immediately pulls himself out of stealth. And if you actually start cycling any kind of a turn meter, that Grievous comes up, takes his first turn, he's out of stealth, and now Magna's just kind of sitting there like a lump. So I like that one least, but if you had to, okay, fine. Like, maybe you needed your B2 to use with Afra or something. I don't know, but that covers, I think, basically your most common 3 versus 3 GG cases. Okay, so let's get into the modding itself. I'll pull up my own, and I took a look at a couple of the other top players. We're mostly in the same neck of the woods. I certainly have more potency than most, so I will say that right up front. I think I have just about as much as you could reasonably want on General Grievous. But we have the health primary arrow, crit damage triangle, potency cross, health circle. At Relic 9, he's absolutely gargantuan, right? You're thinking that for the most part, attackers really gain from relics up to Relic 8. And then, it's a small amount of offense added going to Relic 9. Relic 9's mostly about survivability. In General Grievous's case, he really specifically benefits from just a ton of health. And you get a lot of that going to Relic 9. So if you otherwise had him on a team with, Relic 7 characters, or maybe you have a Relic 8 Stap, Relic 5 everybody else, you could have a Relic 9 General Grievous, something like that. I would bias him to have very high relics, because he makes great use of it. So yeah, because I have all that, all those relics applied, we have very high health throughput at the end. You can check for yourself with C3PO bot what your own General Grievous would look like at Relic 8, Relic 9. The speed is 248, so let me pull up the calculator here. And credit to Fatal, by the way. I spoke with him before I recorded this here, and I will put a link to his video because he really wrote the book on how to mod the General Grievous team. So back when I originally did this some years ago, he was the master reference. The video largely holds up. You don't really use Newt in the team with General Grievous anymore, since you've got Stap in there and you have such an incentive to have only Separatist droids with Stap, right? So I asked him about that, and I said, how much does Newt being removed affect how you clock this team? And he said, really, not much. It's not that big of a difference. So this clocking matters, and let me show you what this means. You want to have your General Grievous's speed based on the generally the fastest character on the team, and classically that's going to be B1. Stap kind of throws a wrench into it, but because he has so many bonus turns, I don't really think about it that way. I think about who am I really counting on for the speed, and I'm used to thinking about it in terms of B1. So thinking about your three cases, about if you have no debuffs resisted and you have the ideal opener, or what if you have a couple of your debuffs resisted in the opener and you need some kind of slack to make sure that General Grievous gets pulled up quickly enough? Because that's the idea, right? If you have these other fast droids and you're able to pump out damage onto target locked enemies, you're able to feed so much turn meter into General Grievous that you have some latitude about how fast to make him. So if I had everything work right, we can see that he has these thresholds of 0.68, 0.76, and 0.84 of B1 speed. My B1 is 326, so in the best case where all of my debuffs land, and he can be as slow as possible and still be brought up in the turn order correctly. He could be as slow as 222 speed, right? It says 221.6 here, okay? 221.68. All right, now if I wanted to account for the middle case, the 0.76, he would have to be 248 speed, right? Because the number's 247 point something. And then assuming the worst case that I had a bunch of my stuff resisted, that is going to be modding him for 274 speed. And that's a huge commitment. I don't like that, so I decided not to go to that length myself. I went for the middle case, and that's why my General Grievous is exactly 248 speed. So again, I will include the link to Fatal's video, because if you really want to understand the under-the-hood math of why you're clocking General Grievous based on B1, and there's a specific thought about how to manage the turn meter to bring him up and kick off the team and kick off the turn meter train that the enemy cannot escape, you really cannot do better than Fatal's reference. So if you're curious about those details, check it out. Okay, so as I said in the TLDR, we've got the health primary for the arrow. I'm able to hit the speed that I wanted without using a speed arrow. If I had to, I would. Crit damage triangle. I also happen to have some banging health secondaries on here, right? So I'm not leaving a lot of money on the table either way, but crit damage I do think gives you the most kapow. So I opt for that. The 30% potency, right? So with your potency cross, yeah, maybe if you had some great potency secondaries and you could hit something like, I don't know, 60% potency with in a health primary cross, that would mean that your Grievous is that much larger and you're stacking potency and health every time he's getting a turn. So you could make a really intelligent argument for going for that. I chose the potency cross because I'm able to get him up to 80% potency, which means that on his very first turn, he has an absolute floor minimum of 100% potency. And God forbid any of his debuffs on his first turn get resisted, because he's going to do that AoE on the first turn. So he's going to be starting at 100. He's only going to ramp off from there. And that's the thought. I do want to have the highest probability of my debuffs landing, so that's why I do that. And because I have a decent amount of potency baked into the key characters of this team that are inflicting debuffs, inflicting target lock, I feel like I have enough potency in the team overall where I felt comfortable modding for that middle case, right? I might have been able to mod for even the best case where he could have been as slow as 220 something, but experience has taught me that I'm pretty comfortable with him being 240 plus in just about any circumstance. So that's my personal take. I would personally have him about 240, regardless of the speed of your B1. But I've technically covered how you have a little bit of give in there, okay? All right. Let's go ahead and talk about applications. So offensively, General Grievous with Stap has been amazing, okay? I think I do have Stap selected, right? So I don't know why it's covering a lot of these B teams here, but here it is, beating Leia all during the life of the Stapcron. At the time of this recording, the Set 14 Datacron for Stap has just expired, so we'll have to see how good this is in the future against something like Leia. But yeah, you're able to strip, potency off of them. You're able to create your own turn meter train, run loops on them, debuff the crap out of them. It's crazy how I'd say in my experience using GG against Leia, in 3s or 5s, they don't get to participate in the fight. It's amazing. So I expect there will be other high-level punch-up opportunities for him in the future. But as you're just looking here, you're seeing he can take on all manner of B team. The banners are perhaps suspect. So you might consider setting him on defense. I have definitely, since Stap has come out, have enjoyed him somewhat there. Let's take a look at that real quick. In 5 versus 5, yeah, Tuskens have been able to fight it. But look at the things that struggle. Malgus, DTMG. Man, you used to be able to do Night Sisters, and it was a wild ride against Grievous, but I don't think that works no more, buddy. Now, granted, this is all based on the last season where we still had Set 14 Datacron, but the principle is the same in that Stap has that bonus turn where he's going to kick off and start your team, and you just have to survive all that. Yeah, Gungans were having trouble beating this. BKM, yeah. So as far as what's high win rate, let's take a look at that. What are you doing to really reliably beat this? People were using Bane, Gungans, Reva, that makes kind of sense. Okay, Radis, that's a good value. Seer Malicos. So it's a serious team. All right, okay, I see you can still get it done with Malgus, with Traya. All right, these are decent teams to demand out of the opponent. Now let's take a look at 3 versus 3 real quick. Yep. Reva, Gungans, Bane, Tuskens. Ooh, see, this is with Tusken Warrior and Boba Fett Scion. Interesting. The banners are poor, but wow, 100%. And actually, think about that. Last 3 versus 3 season, there was nothing specifically benefiting Tuskens, but there was that Set 14 crown for GG, so that's pretty cool. Not a great value buy, but pretty cool. Okay. Yep. Malgus, Reva, Jedi, Dash could get it done. Okay. Some Jedi comps can do it. But this is kind of the idea. Like, all these things end up bleeding some banners. Yeah. This isn't so bad. Yeah, some of these are actually pretty nice. So General Grievous is, and I obviously only sorted on General Grievous and Stap here to allow that flexibility for maybe some other droids you'd like to run with them, but pretty effective team. Offensively or defensively, really like this one. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to move through the rest of the, Dark Side Separatist droids here for our team, the main General Grievous team, and yeah, this is a fun one. So if you like this video, please hit like and hit subscribe if you want to stay tuned for future videos. Really appreciate the interactions with you guys in the YouTube comments. Love chatting with you about this. Some of you have had some great ideas, even a couple corrections, and I appreciate it. We're all trying to grow and get better at the game, so good stuff. Keep it up. Really appreciate the support and the opportunity to engage with you all. And yeah, until next time, it's been real. It's been awesome. It's been real awesome. Take care.